So what we are gonna be seeing today is embracing the change, or we'll be talking about strategic business reporting from examiner's approach. So in ACCA, what will be the examiner's approach for our particular exam? Strategic business reporting exam tests professional competencies within the corporate reporting environment. Corporate environment, professional competencies. So candidates will be examined based on concepts, theories, principles, and the ability to apply this knowledge to real life scenarios. So it's not only calculations, you have to actually be able to apply the concepts, theories, principles to a given scenario. So candidates should use their answer to demonstrate their ability to make strategic business reporting decisions. The study guide outlines the level of understanding required by students, and the verbs used in this document imply a high level of understanding of the subject matter. They include the ability to appraise, assess, critically discuss, apply knowledge, and evaluate. In addition, verbs such as prepare and explain are also used. Thus, the examination requires some calculation and explanation of accounting standards, but majority of the examination requires the application of that knowledge and understanding. Questions will be based upon corporate reports of which a deep understanding is required. Therefore, candidates will not be able to successfully answer SBR questions by rote learning and reproducing textbook answers. So just writing the answers isn't enough. You actually have to be able to apply that knowledge and understanding. So thus candidates who read around the subject, think critically about the information and relate to it to practical examples will be awarded in this examination. So what is the structure of SBR? So total marks for section A is 50 marks, and then section A will include two compulsory scenario based questions totaling 50 marks. So first question will be 25 marks. So first question will be of group. So basically every time it's always group. So question one will be based on financial statements of group entities or extracts thereof, and in addition may require consideration of financial reporting issues. So there will be issues about it, and then or you'll be given extracts. So it is important to note that candidates will be required to discuss the principles behind any calculation they provide, and the number of marks allocated to purely numerical answer will be restricted. So you actually have to explain it as well. The question will require candidates to prepare a calculation from any aspect of group accounting, including statements of cash flow. The question will require candidates to prepare a calculation from any aspect from group accounting, including cash flows, and discuss and explain the accounting principles behind their calculations. So you have to discuss the accounting principles behind your calculation. Suppose you are talking about goodwill, so how is it calculated? What method that you used, you've got to explain it as well. So from September 2018, there will be significant change in approach. It is extremely important for candidates to read the requirements of the question and not just simply prepare extracts from group financial statements. The preparation of full set of group financial statements or group statement of cash flows will not be required. Candidates are unlikely to obtain a marks on question 1 by simply preparing a numerical solution. A discussion of that calculation will also be required. This is more important. Question 2. Question 2 will involve the consideration of reporting and ethical implications of some accounting issues presented in specific scenarios. Students must demonstrate their understanding of the fact that ethics and integrity are central to accounting profession and be able to exercise the sensitive professional and moral judgments. Ethics will feature in every exam and is essential that candidate understand the implications of these ethical issues professional marks will be awarded to this question, and these marks relate to discussion of the ethical issues set out in the question. So they don't actually tell you like talk about ethics or whatever, but you actually have to find it in the answer, like what are its ethical implications. So if you happen to find it and write about it, that's much better. So section B is of 50 marks as well. So section B consists of two questions, 25 marks. So since section B will contain two compulsory 25 marks question, which will be based on short scenario or a case study which has been several parts or an essay. They will contain both discursive and computational element and could deal with any aspect of the syllabus. So it could be of any syllabus. The section will always contain either a full or part question that requires the understanding of financial and non-financial information from the perspective of preparer of financial statements or another stakeholder's perspective. Okay, two professional marks will be awarded to the question that relates to performance of the entity or appraisal of information from stakeholders' perspective. So you have to write from multiple perspectives of investors, or I mean stakeholders. So whether it could be investors, lenders, whoever it is that the questions have asked, or like even though it's not asked as well, you could definitely write it from what that particular scenario or recording that transaction might affect which stakeholders the most. You can write about it, so that will be much better as well. So it should be noted that the current issues element of the syllabus may be examined in section A or B, but will not be full question. It is more likely to form part of another question. So overall, candidates will have to demonstrate a range of skills and abilities, which include relating accounting issues to relevant concepts and practical situations. Beside the specific technical knowledge relating to group statements, the examination will require candidates to exercise professional and ethical judgment. There will be a requirement to adopt a stakeholders or investor focus in answering some questions, as I've just mentioned earlier. Similar things, stakeholders' perspective, which may involve the discussion of specific aspects of financial statements or supplementary information disclosed by entities or issues faced by investors in understanding of these corporate reports. So it's mostly basically about, you don't have to prepare the whole financial statements. It's about extracts, and then you have to actually explain the concepts, theories, principles behind it. That's the main goal of it. So candidates will have to demonstrate a range of skills and abilities which include relating accounting issues to relevant concepts. To pass this exam, candidates require an in-depth knowledge of the conceptual framework. So it sits at the bottom of the pyramid, as Tom as well mentioned, the lecturer as well, like in his webinar. So he has a um, conceptual framework at the bottom, and then after that, everything is stacked on top of it. At the top of the chain is the stakeholders, then ethics, then there is some other things as well. So Tom has mentioned it in his webinar yesterday. He had mentioned it. So that is also important thing. So conceptual framework is the building base. So it's ethics and then judgment. Judgment is the bottom part. So it all relates down to conceptual framework. So this approach should be used to SBR questions. See, they have told the same thing again. The integrated reporting framework also creates the foundation for new reporting model, and questions will be asked on its contribution to corporate reporting. Candidates should be able to produce reports relating to corporate performance and to evaluate proposed changes to reporting financial performance within the question that examines current issues. It is likely that exposure drafts may be examined in terms of the key areas of change. So exposure drafts is basically mostly about the new standards which will be happening around. And then so you need to look at the exposure draft as well. It's mostly about how the change in IFRS is actually connected to conceptual framework. So you, if you know that link, it is more helpful. So however, you will not be there will not be a complete question on single exposure draft. Any discussion paper that are deemed to be current issue will be examined on a principal basis only, and a detailed knowledge of discussion papers will not be required. So it's mostly about the principles only. You don't have to know about the core thing, but the principles of the standards and the conceptual frameworks remain like it's based upon conceptual framework as well. So what you can do is how they actually interact between them, so you can talk about that. So candidates should be prepared to identify any issues or deficiencies which have led to proposed changes in accounting standards. So what sort of deficiencies were there in earlier standards so that the new standards had to be made, or the proposed changes had to be made. So you need to identify that. So that will be basically the principal thing as well. So you will basically cover it in the principles as well. So the principles of group accounting should be examined in either A or B. For example, section B could include a question on control or whether the acquisition of an entity meets the definition of business combination, IFRS 3. So detailed knowledge of an industry or specialized accounting knowledge will not be required, but candidates should be prepared to apply their knowledge to scenario provided in the question. So you need to apply your knowledge to the scenario provided in the question. Environmental, social, and cultural consideration are important. Although question on this topic will not be frequent as those on other topics. Candidates should be aware that the same topic can appear in more than one question. Same topic can appear, for example, impairment of assets or financial instruments can be issue to consider in several questions in the exam. Questions will also be based on specific subjects or particular themes. Candidates should also be aware that if an area is constantly generating poor answers, then examining team may wish to reassess it from a different perspective. In this context, it is important to look at examiner's report and article to understand the examiner's view on the issue, which you guys already know. Like they actually publish examiner's report. So what are their views as well? So inside the mind of an examiner. So if you look at it as well, you get a rough idea about it. So what are the candidates actually failing at? So they might actually examine that. So that could be a good hint. The new SBR syllabus does not require different knowledge to that which was required in P2 corporate reporting. However, there has been change in how the examining team expects the candidate to apply the knowledge. For example, the requirement to look at corporate reports from the view of investors. For SBR, there will be significant more marks allocated to answers written to written answers than numerical answers. Simply practicing numerical answers will not result in success in this examination. The written answers should be in depth to answer the question that is being asked. Brief narrative answers will are unlikely to meet the requirements of the question, even though the numerical content may be correct. This means a thorough analysis of the question requirement is imperative. So basically, it's not a numerical based question, it's a explanation based on principles, knowledge, and then concepts that that you must be able to apply in the given question. So it's basically divided into two. So section A contains question 1, question 2, and then section B contains two questions, each 25 marks. So in section A as well, 50 marks, 25 marks, 25 marks each. So that's pretty much how it is examined. And if you look at this examiner's approach, you'll have a better understanding of it. So I would definitely recommend you to use this technique. So you might actually gain a better marks. So yeah, until next time, bye bye guys.